Coming in Facebook, coming in YouTube, getting ready to start my show, Jamie Rants. I am literally right on time needing to get started here. But thank you for being here today. And yeah, got a great show in store for you here today. Thank you for joining in. And here we go. What happens to the body after months of isolation at home? Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me though. I'm over on Instagram. I am at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Always, always, always start right here on Jimmy Rants on Instagram Live. We also simulcast live over here on Facebook, where I see Norma just peeked in. Hello, you guys. Thanks for being here today. And we also simulcast over on my YouTube stream. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay on IGTV. We do put it up over there. As soon as the show is over, it pops up over there on IGTV. We also put it up over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Today is Tuesday, and so that's Jimmy Rants Day on the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show. That's my flagship podcast. It's been out there forever and ever, amen. And today's episode is the audio of where I was talking about that swap meat study, where they were trying to show a positive effect that came from swapping out red meat with the plant-based burgers. So if you missed that episode, go listen to the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show today. LLVLC.com is the website for listening, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then finally, pop on over to the official website for this show. It's JimmyRants.com. And while you're there, you can actually access all the past episodes there. And yeah, that's where you can also support my work. PayPal and Patreon links, any donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. JimmyRants.com is that website. Okay, you guys, I have a topic here today that I've been concerned about, but really didn't know how to best articulate it. And we've seen bits and pieces of what I'm going to talk about here today being talked about. Some of the unintended consequences that have happened from us all being forced to be at home a lot, forced to get out of our routine. Has anybody else felt discombobulated in your life? Like there's a lot of like natural things that I do in my life, in my normal life before COVID-19 hit, that I just didn't even think twice about it, just did them. Going to stores, running errands, doing things, doing this, doing that. And now, before I do anything, I'm always hesitating, thinking, okay, do I have to do something else? Are they open? Is this available? Da, 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 da. So our routines have been thrown way, way off. And so a lot more people are doing things at home. I pretty much have stayed in my home for the most part, really haven't traveled anywhere yet. I will be later in the year, but most of the year I've been pretty much stayed put and pretty much been in isolation in my home. Isolated from people, isolated from events, isolated from any kind of stress relief. Those are the things. And of course, this is my job. So my job is come into my living room area and go on Jimmy Rants Studio and talk to you guys. My job is to interview people. My job is to make content on social media, and that's my job. And I'm doing that all in the comforts of my home. And I love my home, by the way. I'm not complaining. I've got lots of little toys to kind of help me de-stress. Hot tub, infrared sauna. Yeah, I got lots of toys, so don't feel bad for me. But I wonder what some of those physical effects. We've talked a lot about the emotional and the psychological effects, the 1 in 4 teenagers wanting to attempt suicide, just people losing their minds, and of course losing their jobs, and that's led to some stress financially. We've talked about all those things, but what about the physical effects that have happened being stuck at home in isolation for months? Now, I live by myself. Even those of you that live with your family, maybe you have a spouse and some kids, you still have some of these effects that I'm going to talk about here today. And so I found this news article. It was actually published on CNN.com. And the title is, "This is what happens to your body over months in isolation." And I don't think we've thought about this. I don't think we think about that there's been literal physiological effects that have come from the isolation. And of course, some of those effects are a direct result of added stress. Some of those are a direct result of getting out of your routine, and maybe activity was a part of that routine, and that activity has either been reduced or eliminated. Some of that isolation physical effects has come from boredom because you've been at home more, and thus you have access to food more, and so you're stuffing your pie hole more with food. I mean, I could keep going on down the list, all of the reasons why physically changes and effects have been happening to you since being stuck at home. And if you're just joining us, I'm about to read from an article from CNN looking at what those physical effects of being stuck at home in isolation for months have been. And maybe you'll recognize some of these in yourself. So let's get to this. Since the pandemic officially began in March, we've been told that staying at home is the best way to avoid catching COVID-19. And it is. But life in confinement can cause physical ailments of its own. This is a part of the unintended consequences that I don't think they thought it through. I think what they're thinking was, okay, we have more responsibility to keep people from getting COVID-19, and therefore let's lock everybody up in their homes. And yes, we know there will be consequences, but the consequences of those actions will be far less than the consequences of people getting out there, getting COVID-19, and possibly, dun dun dun, dying from this. That was their rationale. Being homebound for so long contorts the body, weakens the heart and lungs, and even impairs your brain function. The effects of life in isolation may stay with us long beyond the pandemic's end, whenever that's going to be. So let's go back on that. Being homebound for so long contorts the body. Think about if you're sitting around more and you're used to standing up in a job, you're used to doing other movement. That's contorting the body. It weakens the heart and lungs, ostensibly because you're not working out, you're not doing movement in your life, and so that would weaken the heart and lungs. Impairs brain function, which we know could be a direct result of a lot of things. The stress itself can be doing that, but even the poor nutritional health choices. When people first got locked down, what did they buy up in the stores? They bought all the crappy garbage they could, and then they start eating that on the regular. That will impair your brain function. So this is all what happens with half a year of isolation. Staying home and staying sedentary can do to your body. So they start off with muscle. You start losing muscle. A week homebound, whether you're working, eating, or sleeping, may feel comforting and necessary, but then you have all this inactivity that can undo hard-won progress. That's because it can take months to build muscle and just 1 week to lose it. So here's the thing. When they told people to go home and all the gyms shut down and all the everything changed about people's routines, there needed to be a coinciding message that says, but just because you don't have access to those things doesn't mean you can't get into shape. And I love that a lot of our people in this community, I love how they embraced the opportunity to show people how you work out from home. Body weight exercise, just doing things on your property, getting creative. They didn't really talk about any of that. So a lot of the people in our space talking about physical activity, they were the ones that kind of stood in the gap and said, okay, if you need time to just compress what's happening to us, that's one thing. But when you're ready to get serious and to start rebuilding muscle so that you maintain your muscle mass, we're here for you, and here's things you can do at home. So that messed a lot of people up. Humans, for all of our hardiness, also lose muscle more quickly as we get older, according to Keith Barr, a professor of molecular exercise physiology at the University of California, Davis. When you lose muscle, you're not necessarily losing bulk, but you are losing strength. which Barr says is one of the strongest indicators of how long you'll live. So strength training is definitely something that's critical. And I've tested my strength to see if I've lost any. I have these big 50-pound kitty litter things that I have to lift, and I can very easily hold both of them and kind of do the farmer's walk thing with those. And I will do that from time to time just to see where my strength is, if I've lost any strength. And so far, if I have, it's been minimal. Maybe I struggle a little more with it than I did, say, 6 months ago, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. I do need to get pretty active again, and no judgment from anybody that's kind of backed off your routine. We've been thrown into a loop this year, so be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, and get back into it. I'll tell you what I really want to do is ramp up flipping that tire again. I had started doing it, and then had some stress happen in my life, and it really messed me up, so I got out of the habit of it again. So I want to get back to that, because that's when I felt the strongest in my life, was when I was flipping that tire. The stronger you stay, the easier it is to maintain longevity. So maybe you're not thinking about longevity. Maybe you're in your 20s, 30s right now, and you're like, okay, I just want to get through this stress. It's just rough. But just know that any action you take now that's going to help you down the road is going to be helpful. So just remember that. Remember that every action you do is going to be helpful. And if you just joined us, we're looking at what physiologically has happened to our bodies after being stuck at home over the past half year in isolation. And the first thing in this CNN article I'm reading, you start losing muscle. The second thing, your heart and your lungs get weaker. If you're not exercising, you're not getting your heart rate up. And when your heart isn't pumping as hard, it actually gets weaker. The same thing happens to your lungs when you're inactive, according to a pulmonologist named Dr. Panagis Galiatosis from Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center. He said many of his patients have felt their breathing function deteriorate because they're no longer conditioned to exercise. I will admit to you guys that I have noticed when I'm lying down at night, I do have a bit of kind of a wheeze that has started, not real noticeable, but noticeable to me because I've not done that in years, and now I'm noticing it again. So I'm going to work on this getting my lungs stronger again, because I think all of this is important. And this is important information for us to be reminded of, that yes, we've been through some traumatic stuff this year, but we need to take care of our bodies in the midst of that, and physical bodies more than anything. People with a poor lung health are already considered more susceptible to COVID-19 because it is a respiratory illness, so they're likely staying home to reduce their risk of infection. But if they're not moving when they are at home, then increasing blood flow to their lungs by moving, then their pre-existing condition might harm them anyway. So people stay at home, people are doing all the things they tell them to do to avoid a respiratory virus, but then they're actually harming their respiratory system because they're not doing the things that would work that respiratory system to make them stronger. Exercise is the only key to improving both your heart and your lung function. Not one single medication can do that. If it's not safe to leave the house, Barr recommends dancing or fiddling household objects for home strength training. Think milk jug deadlifts. You can get creative, that's for sure. Now, I disagree exercise is the only way to improve heart and lung function. I think deep breathing exercises will improve lung function. I think eating a real foods-based diet can help with heart function. So don't buy into you must just exercise. This is obviously the bias of CNN in this article. There are other ways that you can improve both lung and heart function. All right, next physical effect of being stuck at home in isolation, you gain fat. If you're home all day, every day, you're likely very few feet away from your pantry. Mine is literally, I can walk 8 steps and I'm in my kitchen. Depending on your perspective, that's either convenient or dangerous. With such easy access, your feeding window, or the period of time during which you eat most of your meals, might widen from 10 to 12 hours a day up to 15 hours a day. This is why maybe being deliberate about intermittent fasting and having a fasting window of like 4 to 6 hours might be helpful. So if you eat more than half the day, it can cause a rise in your insulin levels and they can spike. Insulin will encourage fat storage and convert other fat molecules over to fat, says Giles Duffield, an associate professor of anatomy and physiology at the University of Notre Dame, who studies circadian rhythm and metabolism among many other subjects. Excessive eating is also an issue because at the beginning of the pandemic, many people stocked up on non-perishable foods in case of short supply. But like, yes, they did do that, but they did that because those were the comfort foods. There's nothing better than a bunch of Oreo cookies and Lay's potato chips and all the junk food that people stocked up on when they went to Sam's Club or Costco or BJ's or wherever they went. And they filled up their cart with the crappiest of crappy garbage. Why? Oh, not because it's non-perishable, maybe a little bit of that, but most of it was, this stuff makes me feel good. This stuff tastes good. And therefore, I want comfort food if I'm going to be stuck in my house with 3 screaming kids. So you can see why people made those choices. Many of these non-perishable foods are highly processed and rich in sugars and starches. Translation, crappy garbage. And not just garbage, but high vegetable oils, inflammatory. So really didn't do people much good. And it's no surprise why people who ate that way would gain body fat. Weight gain during periods of intense stress is absolutely normal. And 2020 has been unrelentingly stressful. So even if you ate all the right foods, you could be having a physical effect of being stuck at home with the isolation because of the stress, just from the stress alone. Please, 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 don't let anybody guilt you into thinking you somehow did something bad in your diet because you've gained weight in 2020. Unprecedented stress like nothing we've ever had in our lifetimes before. And so those of you that have levels of insulin resistance that are a little bit more severe than others, you got hit harder with the stress than those that had less significant insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity. You know, and I've talked about this before, that when you are insulin resistant, you're also stress resistant. You got to think of it in that terms, that because your body is already kind of compromised metabolically with the insulin resistance, when stress comes on, you almost have to think of that stress as a sugar, as a starch, as something that would be harmful in your body. And it is. It's one reason why learning to take things in stride, learning how to have coping mechanisms to deal with that stress in real time is going to make sure your body stays in that healthy range. But for some people, it's a little bit overwhelming, and I get it. I've had my moments, so trust me, I understand. Weight gain can become dangerous because of stress, because it can turn into obesity. Then your body might start to resist insulin, that's insulin resistance, and chronic health issues like metabolic illness, diabetes, and other things might develop. So this is all stuff that we know. I've been talking about these things for years, but all the more so because you've been stuck at home in isolation and all of your normal routine has been all out of whack this year. Next one, as I sit up a little straighter for you guys, your posture becomes affected. We all have a seated position that we subconsciously sink into. Slumped forward, shoulders hunched, spine curled, neck bent, on your chest and elbows up. But sitting and lying down all day can seriously affect your posture, put a strain on your back, your neck, shoulders, hips, and eyes. According to Brandon Brown, an epidemiologist, he's also an associate professor in the Center for Healthy Communities at the University of California, Riverside. Brown suggests getting up from your seat once an hour, walking around and stretching for a moment. You might even lie on the floor and just let your back readjust. I make it a habit not to sit in one place for a long time. I literally am moving all day long. I'm usually hanging out in my backyard with my chickens, doing things with them, cleaning up the water things for them, all the things. I'm not sitting down for long periods of time. And even when I'm writing posts for social media, I've got my phone in my hand and I'm pacing around all over my property. I don't like to sit down and stay in one place. When I do Jimmy Rants, this is probably the longest I sit at one time all day long, because the rest of the day I'm just moving around and around and around and around and around because I don't like that sedentariness. And I do start to notice that if I sit for too long, I do get a pain in my lower right hand side of my back. And so I know it's because it's compressing those vertebrae. Yeah, so I don't do that. The next one, your sleep suffers. Physical effect of being stuck at home in isolation for months. At least half of all Americans are skimping on their vitamin D levels, which will sustain bone density and keeps fatigue at bay. You're definitely one of them if you spend most of your day at home, curtains drawn. Guys, if you're not getting outside on a regular basis, and I've talked about this quite a bit on Jimmy Rants lately, get outside, let that sun hit your eyeballs at various times of the day. You're setting your circadian rhythm so that you sleep well. You're also getting that vitamin D production naturally from the sun. We are starting to get less sun during the day. So maybe you start supplementing with like a vitamin D supplement like this one I use from Wild Superfoods, vitamin D stack from my friend Abel James, wildsuperfoods.com if you're interested. But these are the kind of things that are going to provide so much help and benefit for you if your sleep is suffering, getting all of these things kind of in order. And plus you get an immuno boost that would fight off COVID-19 if you were to get it. So getting enough sunlight in the morning will synchronize your body's circadian rhythm. So if you're shut in all week or working in the dark, your sleep might suffer. Don't work in the dark unless it's night, but really at night you should start winding down so that you do get a good night's sleep. I'm one of those people that when I wake up in the morning, and I get up super early typically, like 3:30, 4:30 in the morning, and I hit the ground running because my brain is going wild thinking of ideas and doing content. That's just the way it goes. And then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm starting to wind down. I'm not doing much of any work at that point of the day. I'm already actually starting to get sleepy, so that when I put my head down on that pillow at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I'm ready for sleep. And that has definitely helped me. Even in the midst of this stress, I've had my moments when the sleep's not so great, but try to dial that in. Brown said, as long as you're going on walks or exercising, doing yard work or other activities that drag you outside for a bit, you won't need to worry about getting sunlight. If you're unable to get out of the house or the weather won't permit you to, an artificial bright light can help your body retune, in the morning, as can avoiding blue light at night. So yeah, I turn off all the blue light stuff at night. I actually have a Juve light, so that's red light therapy. And when I'm feeling kind of drained of energy and there's no sunlight outside or it's bad weather, I will stand in front of the Juve light for about 10 minutes and just let all that red light just pour over me, and it will rejuvenate you. And then the last one, you guys, the physical effects of being stuck at home in isolation for months. Your brain will slow down. A sedentary lifestyle will slow your brain. Exercise produces certain chemicals in the brain that break down toxins in the blood and even prevent them from going to the brain, where they kill brain cells. Not exercising means you won't as efficiently break down amino acid byproducts that wind up as neurotoxins in the brain. The effects of isolation are insidious, like the pandemic. The physical symptoms after months of seclusion often aren't obvious until you're actually in trouble. That can be harmful or extreme. It's possible too to stave off these symptoms long before they set in for good. So prioritize your mental and your physical health while staying home requires some work, but it's a healthier coping mechanism for uncertainty that staying stationary until COVID-19 is no longer a threat, as the health experts are saying. And when it's safe to live fully again, you'll be prepared. Well, guess what? Some of us are feeling quite safe in living fully again. Some of us are more than happy to be back out there again, and we're not afraid of COVID-19. And we're certainly not afraid of all these physical effects of isolation, because we're feeling them and we know enough is enough. It's time for us to get back to some semblance of normality in our lives. I don't think we're ever going to truly get back to where we were pre-COVID. I think the Pandora's box is way too open on that at this point. We're going to have new things that will be implemented that weren't there before. Think what happened after 9/11. We never had a TSA before 9/11. Then 9/11 hits and they implement TSA, and to this day, almost 20 years later, we still have a TSA. So there's things that are going to be put into place because of this COVID-19 thing that won't ever go away. So how you adjust to that and the things that you do to protect yourself physically, emotionally, psychologically, all the things is going to be critical. But what do you think about this? The physical effects, have you noticed any of these physical effects of being stuck at home in isolation for the past 6 months, 7 months? I have experienced several of those. And the interesting thing is awareness. When you're aware that these things are happening and you're aware of what the triggers are and what caused them, then you can set up a game plan for dealing with them. So on the movement aspect, like I said, I want to get back to flipping my tire again. Definitely with the cooler temperatures, it makes it a lot easier than it was during the summer for me to get back out there and go and flip that tire every few days. And I have, for the most part, eaten pretty well. I have had my moments of temptation, but for the most part have eaten pretty well. Dealing with the stress is probably my biggest bugaboo. Trying to deal not just with COVID-19 and all the other things that 2020 have provided, but I have personal issues in my life that have been ongoing. So we'll get through those, but that's been my biggest challenge. What kind of physical effects are you guys seeing? Have you noticed any kind of aches and pains maybe come back on? I did a Jimmy rant several months ago that if you get a sudden feeling of various aches and pains, that's a sign that your body is not handling the stress very well. So I'd be interested in seeing what you guys have to say. So let's get over here now to Instagram first, and then we'll go over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Joshua says, baseline stress levels seem to be higher in others and myself. Yeah. I don't know how it couldn't. The stress from this year, even the strongest person, even the most resilient person, I don't know how you handle the bombardment of all the things back to back to back to back to back that we have had to deal with in 2020. Unprecedented in my lifetime. Never did I imagine we would be dealing with so much so fast. But here we are. And some people have not done well. Some people are a shell of the person they were in March. They're a shell of that person now. And that breaks my heart. Because when you're a shell, you are susceptible. Not just to physical effects, but mental health effects and contemplating suicide and just all kinds of really ugliness. Thankfully, I've not gotten to that level. I've gotten dark and deep and called my friends and please walk me off the ledge, but never to the point that I ever had those suicidal thoughts. But it's gotten bad at times. And I'm thankful that I have friends in my life that can help me when I have those moments, and vice versa. I'm that friend to a lot of people that when they're struggling, they contact me. So we need that support right now. Jax says, I thankfully have continued to work, but work was upside down and crazy for a while, even now. Yeah, it's changed. Like your clientele coming in, I don't know what kind of job you do, Jax, but the clientele coming in, if it's a retail store, they're having to wear a mask. And okay, are you mandating that for your customer base? Are you doing the things that you normally would? What measures have been put into place that have made it more challenging to be there for them? It's so weird. Work sure is different from how it used to be. I would love for you to kind of share how it's different from what it was to what it is now. That would be really interesting to share. Martha says, I wasn't stuck at home, but I am now. I'm essential, but the hot summer has me backing off on my outside activity. First time in 18 months, I've lost motivation, trying hard to regroup. Martha, you're not alone. Again, this has been a hard year, and I think if we forget to give ourselves grace and realizing the difficulty that we've gone through, you almost have to look at 2020 as a traumatic event, an adverse event that you weren't expecting and you weren't prepared for, and yet you're experiencing it. The good news is, if there is good news, is we've all gone through that. So it's not like you're all by yourself in this. You have lots of people that can empathize with what you're going through. But I hear you about losing some of that motivation. You've been hard at it for 18 months and now you're just kind of lost. You're not alone. Like, be encouraged, and people that kind of get to that level where they feel like they've lost the spark that had them doing keto or carnivore or whatever your healthy lifestyle choice was, go back to the basics. Get back to square one. Act like you don't know anything about any of this and just start again. I know that is so hard. You remember the first day you started your lifestyle change, it was so hard because you didn't really have a lot of confidence. You didn't really feel good yet. But very quickly, when you start again and get back to the basics, it can turn around. But with the stress, I wanna emphasize this. With the stress, it might be delayed in seeing results compared to when you didn't have this kind of stress. So give yourself that love and grace and know that you can get back on track again. And of course, you're watching Jimmy Rants, so you're here for motivation and inspiration. I try to provide it. Obviously, reach out to me if you run into any trouble or if you need a pep talk. I do it literally all the time to people in direct message. So thank you for sharing, Martha. Stress has been high. I've been beating myself up over 7 pounds while eating properly. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. My watch reminds me to move if I haven't been up in 50 minutes. I'm also on my feet my entire 8 hours at work. Yeah, I like that the Apple Watch has a little hepatic tap, and it'll be like, okay, dummy, time to get up and move. When I used to wear the Apple Watch, it would do that. But I hardly ever needed it to do that because I was already moving. I don't think I stayed sedentary for more than 15, 20 minutes in any one place. I just can't do it. I'm not one of those people that just can stay in one place. I have to constantly be wiggling. Joshua says, it feels weird when people are scared of you in public. Worst lie ever. People are biohazards. Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, they made us fearful of each other, that we're all contagions. And yeah, I will smile at people, but I won't open my mouth in case they are fearful of me spitting on them and giving them COVID-19. Martha says, I work in a retail pharmacy and the public is just tired of it all. So many people are angry. I stay positive, but there are some days. Yeah, that is interesting. You're hearing the public kind of speaking up out against it. I wonder, the public will is gonna have to break at some point. And I think we're already seeing cracks in it now. And people, the mental health effects, I know we're talking about the physical effects on this Jimmy Rants, but the mental health effects are rough. I was watching a video from New York City subway. TMZ had this just this morning. I was looking at this video. This woman was not wearing a mask, a black woman, and this gentleman went up to her and basically said, hey, can you put on a mask? Da-da-da. And she goes off on you're a white supremacist, racist, nobody believes this is real. I mean, she just went on and on and on. You can look it up, TMZ. Ballistic woman on the New York subway. And she started assaulting the white guy. I'm just like, ugh. Like, we have such a cross reactivity of COVID-19 and all the stuff, and the race stuff and all the stuff, and then you have the presidential stuff. Oh my God, you must be a blank supporter. And it's like, okay, yeah, the world has gone mad in a lot of ways. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let's pop over here now to my Facebook page, see what you guys have to say. What's up, Facebook? Kira says, my comfort foods have really changed since working from home with COVID, but now on keto, I really love dehydrated beef and liver. I make it myself. Regardless, I'm not relaxed. It's delicious, but I'm still stressed out. Well, eating real food doesn't stop the stress, Kira. Stopping the stress and dealing with the stress and managing the stress in all the ways that you do that is going to help. But at least you're nourishing your body in the midst of the trying times. But yeah, eating real food alone is not going to be a de-stressor. and for all those people that stuff their mouth with the junk food. That's not de-stressing you either. It's giving you a dopamine hit, so you get this kind of quick little, ooh, I feel good, and then you don't feel so good an hour later. So, all right, thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here now to my YouTube channel, see what my YouTubers have to say. Hola, hola. What's up, Johanna and Deborah and Abel and Shirley? Craig says the beard looks good. Well, thank you. I've been working on it. Try to keep it clean. I'm not one of those guys that like the grizzly look. I like a nice clean beard. Hello, Linda. Oh, you're just all saying hi today. No comments for me, huh? So guys, yeah, physical effects. I know you felt them. I know you've seen them in your own life of being stuck at home in isolation for months. And here's the thing. I just had my friend Rachel on Instagram yesterday noting that in the state of Missouri, they're still on lockdown through the end of December. So this isn't going away. Some of these things I talked about in this Jimmy Rants today of these physical effects. And again, we didn't even touch on the emotional effects, the psychological effects, and all of that. Just the physical effects on your body of being isolated and being at home and being away from your normal social activities and your normal routine. Like, I feel for all those parents who have those kids whose brains are wired to like routine. And so they're used to a routine, and now that's all been thrown out the window. And these poor kids are having to adjust to not having their routine. It's got to be hard on those parents. So I feel for you if you're one of those parents. Just know you're not alone. There's a lot of people dealing with that. So when do these physical effects end? When we allow them to end, when we kind of speak up and say, okay, we're having ramifications to our bodies and to our minds that is far worse than COVID-19 ever will be. And they even admitted it in that CNN article, that these effects that we're seeing physiologically, emotionally, they're not going to go away. This will be the next kind of wave. They keep talking about a second wave of COVID-19. No. The second wave of COVID-19 is all the ramifications of the decisions that were made to protect us from COVID-19. And that's coming. If it's not already manifesting, it's coming. And all the people I know in my life who are in the mental health profession, therapists and all the like, they're already bracing because there's going to be a flood of patients that they're going to have to deal with. But guys, physical effects. Try to mitigate them as best as you can and realize that we've all had to deal with one or more of these physical effects that I talked about here today. Rachel says, my lower back is way out of whack. I've never sat this much in my life. That's your clue, Rachel, to get up, move around, maybe do some stretch, just stretch, do some flexing of the muscles, and get outside. One little hack, other than the sunshine and letting it hit your body, another hack to kind of help with some of the pains and maybe energy things is some salt, and stick it under your tongue, kind of like get that salt in your body. Because sometimes when you start feeling bad, you're actually getting deficient in some electrolytes and specifically salt. So that can be a rejuvenator as well. So try that out. All kinds of little hacks you can do. But yeah, you're not alone, Rachel. And if you can go see a chiropractor, I'm sure they would help to adjust you and get you back in order again. All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me right here on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Wolf wants to know what my take on carnivore is. Dude, I talk about carnivore all the time. Meat good, carbs bad. Oh, that's what I think about carnivore. Go follow me on Instagram, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So we start at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so check it out. You can also watch me on my simulcast over here on Facebook. Thank you guys for being here, as well as over on YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay over on IGTV. So go check it out over there. We also throw the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And don't forget, today is Jimmy Rants Day on the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show. That's my flagship podcast. You can go listen to that, llvlc.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. It is all about the swap meat study that I recently did on Jimmy Rants, where they swapped out real beef with these fake vegan burger things. And I pretty much tore that study apart. So go check that out. And then finally, go over to the official website for this show. It is jimmyrants.com. And while you're there, you can see all the past episodes. And then if you want to show your support for my work, you can click on the Patreon link or on the PayPal link, and a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. But thanks for watching today, you guys. We will be back tomorrow with more Jimmy Rants. Bye. All right. It's so funny when I do a Jimmy Rants and I'm at the very end and I'm doing the outro like that. What's up, April? I will get people come on literally seconds before I sign off, and I'm thinking, man, they come on this live and I'm just saying goodbye. So I've done that many times where I'm on an Instagram live or even a Facebook live, and I see a friend of mine or something is on, and so I'll go on, and you can say, okay, well, I guess we're gonna sign off now. Okay, goodbye. And I'm like, I'm trying to type you a hello, but that happens. All right, guys, let me pop off of here for now. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye. Bye, YouTube.